So today we're going to be talking about chronic stress, addiction, intergenerational trauma, spiritual healing, and hope. And the hope that the real change is possible, even when healing feels slow, messy, or impossible. Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for being on today. I really appreciate you taking even all the technical craziness. Thanks for being on Rooted and Real with Keenan. And I'm so excited to hear your story and how you get into it.
Well, thank you so much, Keenan, for inviting me. I'm thrilled to be here, and I can just jump right in if that's okay.
Yeah. Like every good story, let's start from the beginning.
Yeah. So I'm in recovery from. So I'm a stress management and historical trauma specialist, and I also a certified addiction recovery coach. And how did I get that way? Right. Well, so I am in recovery from 40 years of chronic pain. And chronic
Mm,
pain, just so everybody knows, is any pain that's felt 15 days out of 30 for 3 months or more is chronic. Physical,
mm,
mental, emotional, spiritual, it doesn't matter. The brain, it all sends the same signal to the brain. It hurts. So, so a bone that doesn't heal, and you feel the pain for 15 days out of 30 for 3 months or more, is the same as a grief experience.
mm,
We take longer to get over grief. That's generally chronic
for
stress,
sure.
chronic pain.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So my background really is that I was born. My mother went into a huge depression immediately after she delivered me. So we were separated, and she kind of went away for 9 months to deal with that. It turns out this postpartum depression runs in the family. I didn't. I had such a tiny mild case of it. It was hardly worth noticing, but I had. It was enough that I was like, "Oh, I know what that is now," right? But she had a huge one. So that separation for the child from the mother in the beginning is a chronic pain experience,
For
right?
sure. Yeah.
Also, there was a lot of dysfunction in the family on my mother's part. She was an undiagnosed, untreated bipolar disorder, and she really pretty much treated her instability, that inner instability that she felt with alcohol, and that uh, wasn't optimal. So that became quite dysfunctional, and how it turned out for me was that I kept trying to help. I kept trying,
Sure.
"What
For
can I
sure.
do to, like, make her feel better?" And there wasn't anything I could do, and so that was difficult. Then and also they had this is a little bit strange. They had me, my parents had me made me drink milk 3 times a day, cow's milk, and
Hmm.
I'm actually born I don't have the base protein the enzyme that breaks down the base protein casein in my body. So I felt nauseous all the time, and
Right.
nobody knew what that was. So I
Yeah.
had irritable bowel for years until we finally figured out what that was many, many years later.
Hmm.
So a lot of physical, mental, emotional discomfort. And then when I was 14, I had an accident. I fell off a horse and landed on my back and on a rock and
Mm.
broke my fifth lumbar. And I got up from that accident and walked. And so because I was able to, it hurt, like
Yeah. For
it
sure.
definitely hurt, but I didn't realize the extent of the damage because I was kind of used to being in chronic pain. And for me, like, I even in my yoga practice today or any kind of physical practice, just because I have this backstory of a lot of dealing with life with a lot of chronic pain, my challenge in a physical practice is I'm over the line into injury before I even know it.
Mm.
Like I just won't, so my practice is like, where's the line?
Yeah.
Where's the
For
line
sure.
today? Right. So
Yeah.
so that gives you an idea of the level of or kind of the nervous system, what's happening in the nervous system at that point, and I just walked away from the accident hurting, but we never even got an X-ray. I just kind of just hurt for a couple weeks, and then, I went on with life as normal. So, I mean, I went to school the next day and everything, so it was an event, but it was a non-event in my family, and, like,
Yeah.
so also I had that a lot of people relate to this no pain, no gain thing, very athletic family. So it's like push through whatever. And so I already had that, you know, underpinning. So you can see how that's all these things are kind of a setup for chronic stress, chronic pain, and anyway, so I it was from 14 to 28. I finally got it diagnosed 7 years later, and the
Why did it take so
chiropractors kept
long?
me going
Why did it take so long?
because I kept really ignoring the pain.
Okay.
And then 7 years later, I actually couldn't walk upstairs one night after work, and I was like, "Oh, okay, I see, maybe I need to see a doctor about this."
Yeah, for sure.
Right?
Absolutely. So yeah.
Right, my own pushing through thing just
Yeah.
got in the way of all of it, and then the doctor's like, "Well, you have an old injury," and I'm like, "Oh, I know what that is," right?
Yeah.
And so for the next 7 years, chiropractors were able to keep me, pretty well, pretty, not out of pain, but manageable. And then, finally, my chiropractor said to me one day, 7 years after that, he says, "Some of our patients need surgery, and you're one of them." Right? So, which is
No. Yeah.
very unusual to hear that from a chiropractor. So I had 3 surgeries, and then a 4th, a corrective surgery to, see if we could stabilize that spine. 'Cause what had happened is the bone had broken and the front part it split front to back, and the front part had slipped forward and pulled the leg nerves with it. So
Gotcha.
now we've got the bone at this time when I'm talking to you, the front part of that bone is 80% slipped forward off the, spine, and they took the back part off. So that's what's holding me together, right?
Oh my
So
goodness.
I now have a metal. I'm kind of the Dianic woman. I've got like a metal cage holding that all together. And when I'm a yoga teacher and have a mad yoga practice, so that's pretty amazing,
Yeah,
right?
for sure. Oh my gosh.
So it's quite remarkable because they were pretty sure that if they didn't do the surgery, that thing would come right off the deal, and I wouldn't be able to walk at all, right?
Right.
So
For
it
sure.
was important.
So even with
Well,
this back thing going on, like, how was the recovery after the surgery? What was that like?
yeah, well, that was the problem because it was so painful, and they started me on opiates and anti-anxiety medication, which is a class of benzodiazepines, is what
Mhm.
they are. And I was and every time, like, I'd do one surgery and it didn't take, and I did another surgery and it didn't, and anyway, and then I did 4 surgeries, and each time the pain got worse.
Yeah.
And and, uh, and the doctor said finally, after a while, the doctor said, "You have this thing called chronic pain. You
Mhm.
can't heal from it." And I was devastated.
Yeah.
I was like, "What? I've been through all this and now I have this?" I mean, this is like, what is so, but also I had a science background, and I knew I knew a couple things. One, they said you can't heal from chronic pain, and that's not actually honest because that's science is probabilities, not facts. He should have said, Here are the odds. It's probably that." He didn't. So I knew that there was an error there. The other thing was like, really, science operates in a paradigm shift. Like, we didn't used to know what plate tectonics were, for instance. We had no idea, right? Now we know. That's what happens in science. Things, our like perception of what's happening changes. And I knew that because I have a science background. So the other thing is that science can only talk about what it can observe, measure, and describe. You can't comment on anything outside of that. But we live and heal in the all that is, not just in the part that science can observe, measure, and describe. So I knew that they only have a certain view, and they're working in a model, and the model has assumptions, and their assumptions are questionable. So I knew that they were telling me more about the limitation of their model than they were telling that the body's ability to heal. And I knew I was going to have to go out. I'm not throwing out the science part. I'm saying in addition to, I needed to go outside of that paradigm in order to find healing, and I finally did. I actually found a doctor after many years, obviously,
Yeah.
who understood the nature of chronic pain and was trained in Eastern and Western medicine. So
Okay.
he was a holistic healer, and he didn't wanna see my it was so cool. He didn't wanna see my X-rays or my records. He said, "I don't need to see your X-rays or your records. I wanna know who you are."
Wow.
And no one had ever asked me that. Like,
That's
like,
incredible.
"What makes you tick?" And nobody had ever asked that question. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, a lot of science is theory is made up of theories anyway. And so, like, I love that you like kind of looked for answers in a holistic way.
yeah.
How did you find this guy?
That was kinda so my son, who's also in recovery, had a thing going at the time called the Daily Love, and a lot of his, clients were in recovery, and I got to a point I tried to get off those medications, and I couldn't,
Mm,
and I got to a point where it was like, I can't go any further, and my prescribing doctor didn't know how to get me off them. That wasn't part of his training. So, for everybody listening, before you go on a medication again,
absolutely.
ask what the exit plan is first.
Yes. Absolutely. 100%.
So you have an idea of, like, the capacity of this doctor that's giving you this prescribing this medication, like, "Can you get me off it, and what's the plan?" Right?
Right.
So, that
Yeah.
was one thing
Sure.
I learned from that, right?
Yeah.
But he knew someone who worked with this doctor at the Betty Ford Center, and in the pain management program, and I was so grateful. So I went in there, and he helped me get off all the medication, and it helped me, and I walked in that program with 4 years of chronic pain, and I walked out 52 days later with no physical pain. Now I still had the stress habit that contr that fed it, and that was the work of my recovery, was to kinda unwind that stress habit. But, just so that, like, we get a little more clarity on what am I talking about, so that the listeners can kind of, like, relate it to their lives. What is we told you kind of what chronic pain is, but the question is, how is it different from acute pain,
Yes.
right? So we have a stress response in the body that turns on when we perceive a threat, and all kinds of physiology and psychology come to bear, and we deal with the threat, and then the stress response goes back into the on position, off position. In chronic pain, the stress response gets stuck in the on position. And so now we're constantly seeing a threat.
Mm, okay.
We may not be under threat, but we're the way that the brain is perceiving the world is like, I'm under threat. So it gets stuck. And that we are not made for that. We're made for this on-off thing. We're not our physiology is not made for this chronic stress. It creates all kinds of, like, caustic, toxic, chemistry and mental stuff in the body and the mind. So anybody here that's listening to this that knows somebody in chronic pain or maybe has experienced chronic pain, this is what you'll notice, and everybody will nod their head when I say this. Like, I can't remember stuff because the memory part of the brain is affected, and things are very negative, like, "You're bad," "The world's bad," and "I'm bad." Or maybe it's one of those, but mostly a lot of times we'll turn that inside. So we have a pronounced negative mind,
Mhm.
and it tends to turn in within. So, you know, that's another thing. So the emotional center, so that's the emotional center getting affected, and then the primitive part of the brain, the fear center, that fight, flight, shutdown, that gets activated, and you see in brain scans of chronic pain sufferers, you'll see their amygdala. The amygdala is the little part of us, the little reptilian part of us that's related to fear and fight and shutdown. You'll see in chronic pain sufferers in the brain scans that it's bigger. Now, I'm in recovery and I've worked on that, so mine's smaller. And I healed the memory, so I healed the memory issue and I healed the negative mind stuff. So you can heal from this stuff. So you can heal from chronic pain. B, you can heal from the effects of it, right? But the way you do it is not with opiates and benzos. The way you do it is with m- modalities that heal the changes that happen in the brain because of chronic pain.
So what does like therapy look like? You mentioned modalities. Like, what does therapy look like for someone in chronic pain? They're talking to a therapist or seeking you out. Like, what does treatment look like for someone with chronic pain?
So there were a few things that Dr. Prescott taught me. His name is Dr. Peter Prescott. He wrote a book called Conquer Chronic Pain: An Innovative Mind Body Approach. I highly recommend it. I recommend my book too, which is like a great accompaniment to that, which is The Way Through Chronic Pain: Tools to Reclaim Your Healing Power. Peter was very careful about setting the landscape of chronic pain. And so the first thing he did with us in his classroom was he asked this question, what are you doing to contribute to your pain? And I was affronted by that question. I was like, dude, it's doing it to me. What are you talking about? I was just like, anyway, I didn't say that out loud, but I said it
Right.
in my.
Yeah.
And what was interesting about that question was here all this time I had been in complete victim mode, thinking the pain was doing it to me, not having any idea that I had power in that equation. When Peter asked that question, I was like affronted. I had this reaction, "Rah," right? And then halfway through the "Rah," I was like, wait a minute. Just by that question, he just said I might have some power in this.
Mm,
And I never knew that. So I was like, oh, I actually have some power here. This is very cool.
yeah.
And you know what, Keenan? He had my attention after that.
Absolutely. For sure.
He had my attention. When Peter was in the room, he had my attention. He did not waste words. He got right to the point. Second question he asked, which I loved, it also hit me, Second question was, he didn't say it. It wasn't a question. He just made a statement. Don't judge the moments.
Mm,
And I'm like, I'm not judging anything. I was sitting here minding my own business in your classroom. Again, attitude, right? Just
right.
like super defensive, right? Which is part of chronic pain. That's kind of part of the deal, right?
Yeah, for sure.
No, so not I'm not bowing to him yet. I'm just like rare, just trying to hold my space right in this room. And I'm just, but he had the room and I'm listening and I'm realizing he's not talking about me. He's talking about my pain.
Mm,
He's talking about judging my pain. Don't judge the moment. Don't judge, like pain is. So this is what I learned. Pain is information,
mm. Pain
right?
information.
It's
For
not
sure.
good or bad. It's just information. That's a completely different thing when we're kids and we're in the playground and we're bump up against each other, "Ah," right? And the parents come running. What do? The first thing they do is they try and stop us from crying and from hurting.
Yes.
So what's the subtext? Yeah, see, you recognize that.
For
What
sure.
what is the subtext of that?
You're trying to
Pain.
stop the crying and stop the
Where
pain.
pain is bad. We're at war with pain. So when you have that, when that's part of if that's part of the landscape, now we've got a problem because when we hurt, now we're calling it bad. We have a judgment, right? And now we've just amplified the pain because we're having an argument with it. You see, the problem with us and pain, and I'm still working on it. So it's not just, I'm not like, Miss whatever. Like I'm still working on it. The problem with us and pain is that we don't accept it in the moment. We keep it when it shows up, we want it to go away. We want to change the moment.
Right.
Part of the magic of healing from chronic pain is not having an argument with it in the first place. Now that's easier said than done, but I encourage everybody to the next time they stub their toe or whatever, breathe, allow, and see how fast that pain moves
Mm, for sure. Yeah.
relative to if you went in, like that. So that's just kind of like, and then I went into, like I said, I went into his program. I came out with no physical pain. I still had the stress habit. So I was still reacting to my environment like I was still hypervigilant and I was still And I just did the modalities that I use for that. So he was getting real with us and making us, like,
Mm,
look at our stuff,
yeah.
our behaviors. Other thing he did was he taught us how to breathe, how to leverage the breath, because the mind follows the breath. And the nervous system rules us, and most of that is automatic, autonomic, the autonomic nervous system. It's all
Yes.
the stuff and the breath is part of that. But the one part of the autonomic nervous system that we can access is the breath.
Yes.
And so now we can begin to mediate the uh, the way we respond to the world by leveraging the power of the breath
Mm,
and beginning to that's what I use to unwind a stress habit.
mm,
Long, deep breathing. I hadn't learned that. This is the
yeah.
kind of stuff we should be teaching pre-kindergartners, you know? We
Absolutely.
should
For
be
sure.
teaching our kids, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
So the breath work is huge. And I've got like a major in breath work at this point with all the training I've had as a yoga teacher. I've had a ton of
Yeah.
training.
Yeah.
So that's a big thing that I teach that, and I did it. I feel like I teach it pretty well because I've done it, right? And I can kind of keep things simple. And then meditation is another piece, but it comes after the breath. We have to
Yes.
learn how to breathe first.
Yeah.
And then this meditation, which really is the one of the most powerful modalities of all to heal chronic pain because it helps quiet the mind. I didn't say it makes the mind stop thinking. I said it quiets the mind. In the Yoga Sutras, the one of the first few sutras, I think is maybe the second or third, says yoga is the calming of the fluctuations of the mind, and breath work is part of and meditation are part of yoga practice. It's not the only place where breath and meditation are used, but this is just in the sutras, which are like 5,000 years old plus. Yoga is the calming of the fluctuations of the mind. Well,
Gotcha.
what does that mean? That means it doesn't mean yoga is going to take the fluctuations of the mind away. The good, bad, the oh my God, the reactivity, but it means it's gonna calm them. So, for instance, Keenan and I had a little technical difficulty getting started this morning,
Yes.
but it wasn't personal to me or him, it was just we had a little technical thing, and it was fine. 5 or 10 years ago, I would have been out of my mind with, like, sweating and all the things, I was
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's an example of the practice helps to and it's a Monday morning too. We're taping
Yes.
on a Monday
That's for
morning.
sure.
It's like the week
Yeah.
is starting like this, right? So, but
Right.
that didn't happen. Well, you know what he did? He just worked the problem and I worked the problem and boom.
And here we are.
That's calming there weren't fluctuations, the fluctuations were very mild,
Yes.
right? But they could be, crazy wild, and
Right.
they're not. So that's a great example of calming the fluctuations of the mind. Meditation's really good at that,
Hmm.
and chronic pain just creates a lot of, like I said, chaos in the brain. It just like I
Mm.
can't remember my keys. I I used to be able to right before I went into Peter's program, I could watch a movie. It just gives you an idea how bad my memory was. I could watch a movie before I went to bed and get up in the morning and watch it again and not have remembered any of it.
My goodness.
Yeah. So I just but we can heal from that,
Yeah, for sure.
which is
So,
amazing.
I want to ask this question. So, you mentioned breathing, meditation, yoga, and it's a combination of all those
Well, yoga's
together.
breathing and meditation and movement, right? You
Gotcha.
want
Okay.
movement and nutrition
Okay. What we eat
and
for sure.
my God, yeah, and hydration. Like
Yes.
it's kind of a full package. And
Yeah.
then the other part is underneath all of this is unresolved trauma.
Mm,
So,
absolutely.
that was a part of my, and it's not so much anymore, but it's still an aspect of my program. Uh, I feel like I've resolved a lot of the traumas that I hadn't before. But when you were raised in a family that was like push through, don't talk about it, just keep moving, and no complaining, and like you're gonna have some unresolved stuff there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for
So
sure.
so so understanding getting a good trauma therapist is helpful, and you can use somatic work, body work to help with that. Massage and acupuncture were really helpful for me. So I kinda have a full package, and of course, I do sound healing, and I do ancestral clearing, that's another piece of it, the
Okay.
ancestral piece,
Yeah.
and part of my yoga practice, but not chanting doesn't have to be part of a yoga practice, it's just part of healing,
Right.
right?
Yeah,
Lots of people do there's chanting in all kinds of different practices,
for sure.
and we do hymns in Christianity and we
Mhm.
do, like Hallelujah.
Absolutely.
That could be a meditation. That's a
Yeah.
chant. So it doesn't have to be this yoga thing. It can be all the way across the board. This is known. Think about Gregorian chants.
Right. Yeah,
That's
for sure.
powerful stuff. And you
Yeah.
feel it when you hear it, and it's calming to the nervous system. What is that? That's sound healing.
Yeah. So there seems like there's space for both, meditation and breathing in both, like having a faith to be able to both like take care of yourself and even like if you have all this pain and this trauma, like giving it to the Lord, but also looking at like how you are taking care of yourself through all of that, through the breathing, through meditation, through yoga, through movement, through what we eat. Like there's all these aspects. It's not even like it doesn't tell me if I'm wrong. Like if I'm really good at breathing and meditation, then everything else doesn't really matter. But it's like a combination of trying all of those things together is going to
I
be
I
helpful.
I I wouldn't say that. I mean,
Okay.
I hear what you're saying. I would shift that slightly and say, uh, I've always felt held by a higher power.
Absolutely.
Like, no matter what was going down in my life, and it got dark a few times, I always felt held. So my kind of viewpoint on that is that this is a co-creative process.
Absolutely.
So I'm not doing anything. This is the thing that's coming through me. And I have free will to make I can choose, "No, I'm not gonna drink water today. I'm not gonna take care of myself today." Well,
Right.
that's not God.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
ego.
Yeah.
There's that piece, but but there's that. And then the other thing I wanna say is you'll have heard some of this, but you won't have heard all of it. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. But where does the Word live? It lives on the breath. So God is in the breath. So anybody that thinks that they're not connected to God, that's the mind, because God is in the breath, God is in every cell and every atom. Like, it's like we're just that all that intelligence is in there. And the thing that I learned the most, I think, about this experience with the doctor saying, "You can't heal," and I'm like, "Watch me." And was 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 that was that the healing power is in me. It's not in the doctor. And I was raised to look to the doctor for the answer. And I was raised, when from my science, I was taught to be trained to be a science researcher. So when I got in front of an expert doctor, like they're the expert, not me. And I kind of forgot my footing there because I'm kind of looking to them. They can help us set the optimal conditions for healing, but they're not the healer. The healer is in us.
Mhm.
And that's a fundamental, powerful understanding. So that speaks to your point just in like a little different way.
Yeah, for sure. Our bodies can do so much that we don't even know or even understand, and even like our brains too. People are still learning about what that's capable of doing. It's really fascinating the things that they're coming out with. Something you mentioned I wanted to ask about is you said you ancestral.
Ancestral clearing, yeah.
Okay, is that like so? I mentioned like generational trauma.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so what do you mean by ancestral clearing?
So it's ancestral and the we could do a whole podcast just on this and then some.
For sure. Yeah,
This is a big part of my practice is this work. So we spiritual teachers have been telling us for thousands of years that we come into this world with the gifts and the burdens of our ancestors. and science has actually been able to catch up to that. So we do come into this world with what you might consider unfinished business, which would be, and it's not, we don't come in with the trauma, we come in with the effects of the trauma
Mm,
that hasn't.
yeah.
So that would be like a worry habit, or what we get a lot, what I experience. So I experience that fair amount, but what I get the most of is a scarcity vibe. Like I can't get, pardon me, I can't get beyond just my paycheck. That's all I can. I can't save more than, I barely make my bills with the paycheck I get, and I can't get beyond that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or it shows up monetarily, but it also shows up, when there's not enough, right? Scarcity
Yeah.
mentality, when there's not enough,
Yeah.
that can pretty easily turn into I'm not enough.
Mm, absolutely.
And so now we've got a scarcity issue and a self-esteem issue, and now we're off to the races with all kinds of insecurities, and then when we forget our connection to our alignment to higher power, then we're really in trouble, right?
Right. Yeah,
Because the
for sure.
mind is gonna now have a field day with us.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. Well, I one more thing as we're wrapping up, I want to honor your time. Uh, any good like podcasts, resources, like things that you recommend, things that you mentioned your book, like what are good resources people can find if they want to
Well,
learn?
if you want to, really kind of dive into ancestral work, you could look up John Newton of healthbeyondbelief.com, who's my ancestral clearing teacher. And I do, you can look me up. I do ancestral clearing. I've been doing it since 2014, almost every day somewhere on the planet. So I've kind of honed the skill. And Howard Wills, Wills, has a version of that. He actually pioneered the work. Daniel Four, that's his last name is Foor. He does ancestral healing, but in a very different way. But it's a resource. And
Yeah,
then if you want like addiction recovery resources, you could just kind of look that up online, but I would encourage you to go to Recovery 2.0, which is I'm affiliated with. Recovery 2 with a 0.com is, we're not just looking at, it's 12 steps, and it's 12 steps and yoga, which is the physical practice, and also yoga is not just a physical practice, it's the metaphysical practice. It's a philosophy really, and it's a spiritual practice, but not a religion. So yoga, yoga, step work, meetings, and nutrition. And it doesn't matter what the addiction is, because there's all kinds of addictions. So we all comers to that platform, which I love about that.
for
So
sure.
anyway, and you can find me on my website, which is Elizabeth Kipp with a dash in the middle between Elizabeth and Kipp, elizabethkipp.com. Elizabeth-kipp.com is my website.
Okay. I'll put that in the description so everyone can find you. Thank you
Yeah.
for being patient with me. And I thank you for being here. I learned a bunch
Yeah.
and just thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here.
Well, thank you so much, Keenan, for the opportunity. I appreciate it. I love your platform. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too.